It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 1 of live Sharp Sessions on the Trademate Sports YouTube channel. I will answer any of your betting questions you've got for me today, discuss any or both new and old betting strategies, preview the weekend sporting action, sports betting in general, and welcome on guests from around the industry in over the next couple of weeks, months, however long we can keep this going for. I know it's at a much different time than we usually do, but I figured obviously where I'm based in Australia and not having to get up early in the mornings and get some content out to you guys, it'd just allow me to get a lot more or a few more live streams out to you guys, a lot more content. And yeah, hopefully, maybe we can get a few more Australians on board, come and join along. And if the Europeans and the people from the UK want to get up early in the morning, they can jump on too. I'm not sure what time it is in the US, or North America. So yeah, let's see how it goes. We'll get on some guests hopefully sometime in the future. We'll see how we go. Today, I'm going to kind of just discuss, I guess, the topic for the week, how sports pundits and commentators and, fandom can influence betting markets and how you can exploit that. And then, like I said, at the end, I can give you guys a few of my favorite bets for the weekend, if the prices have still held for now. As a little cherry on top to finish the stream. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I know it probably takes some time for people to jump on, etc., because of the random time I'm doing this at, the new time. But yeah, any questions along the way are welcome and appreciated. G'day, Pete H. All right. Well, we might as well get cracking into it. So I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about was the first example I wanted to go through in terms of how pundits, commentators, these kind of, I guess famous sports people that are, I guess, build the narrative, control the narrative, these kinds of things. Like if we're talking about soccer or football, we're talking about Gary Neville's, Jamie Carragher, Terry Henry, these guys that get most of the airtime and can, share their opinions. Roy Keane, these kind of guys, and people will respect those opinions so much that they can influence, not only people's opinions about a certain team or player, but they'll also influence their opinions when it comes to betting market. Not too much, but there's certain things I've picked up on over time that I think that are still relevant today. And I also wouldn't say it's, guys like that. I'd also say it's fans in general. So, the most popular teams out there, like in your English Premier League, Arsenal's, Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, these sides, because they're such huge brands, because of everything they've achieved in the past, they are looked upon more favorably in terms of the odds makers than other teams in the English Premier League, even if they're in better form than them, these kind of things. Just because they're Manchester United and they believe the best players, should be at Manchester United, for example. Most of the time they are. But yeah, I think the greatest example of the current example I could have given you, it would have been perfect if I did this stream about 3 days ago. But about 3 days ago, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Liverpool were all at the exact same odds to win the English Premier League. They were both around, they were all three of them, sorry, were around 8, 9 in odds, something like that. Now, obviously, people are going to have opinions depending on who you support, maybe the way you watch the games, etc., etc. But you have to strip away your biases, what team you support, all this kind of stuff, and have a look at what each of those three teams have achieved recently. And then you have to, obviously, using that, predict how they're going to perform this next season coming up. Now, I know people will say I'm biased, but if you take how those three teams have been performing this last season, Arsenal are clearly the best side out of the three of them, clearly. Now, Liverpool, I can understand people making an argument for Liverpool given their, given what they've done in years gone by. And the fact that people could, expect them to turn it around. I'm not going to say they're not going to turn it around, but I would say that going into this season, I would still rate Arsenal as the better team. And also you have to factor into this too that, this season, that is the same as for Manchester United, that they're going to be playing Champions League football. So that's another thing you have to factor into their, extra games. Even though they're both playing Europa League, you can kind of play your second team, B team in that one and get away with a few results. But sorry, I think I lost connection for just a second, but I think we're back on here. Let's erase Liverpool. Let's compare Arsenal and Manchester United. Arsenal clearly the better team this year, clearly. And then if you look forward to the next season, how can Manchester United get better? Well, obviously, both teams are bringing in new players. I don't follow Manchester United news too closely, but from what I see from the most respectable journalists, is that seems like the biggest player that they're going to be bringing in at the moment is Mason Mount. Whereas if you rewind the clock 3 days ago, Arsenal's biggest target, or they'd already signed Havertz by that point, and they were toing and froing for Rice, amongst a few other names. I'm not sure who else Manchester United are going for, but certainly not at you're not hearing names that are at those kinds of levels. So we're saying that Arsenal and Manchester United are the exact same odds 3 days ago. This was. Now it's separated a little bit on the back of the Rice confirmation, basically, that he's going to go to Arsenal. But for one, Arsenal were a better team last season, and secondly, they've had the better transfer window so far. And was there huge signs that Manchester United are gonna take a leap next season? It's not like they were an amazing team last season, and another year under Ten Hag, they're for sure going to get better. They probably will get better, I'm sure. But compare that to where Arsenal were. I mean, how did the EPL ladder finish up last year? Arsenal finished 9 points ahead of Manchester United. So it's a pretty decent gap, and shows kind of, that they were a fair chunk ahead of them. So, yeah, I think the reason why Manchester United are getting priced up is because Manchester United are a bigger club than Arsenal. They've got more representatives in the media. You guys like Gary Neville, who are all. He obviously, disparages United at times, but he also, I think he also looks upon Arsenal negatively a lot of the time, and he has obviously a slight bias to Manchester United. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that this all this betting kind of equalness between the two teams is just because of one person, but I would say it definitely plays a part, and also fandom. I mean, people just see Manchester United. They couldn't possibly go in a season where they're going to finish behind Arsenal again, or at least the gap be that big. But Arsenal should only look at least on par, if not better, when you factor in the Champions League football. But Manchester United also have to do the exact same thing, so that's not really a thing you can argue with the two teams. So I think it's kind of a weird example because Manchester United and Arsenal are both big teams, but Manchester United are above Arsenal in terms of popularity. Just think if Manchester United's name was, I don't know, Chelsea maybe, or Tottenham, that's probably a good example. I think you would never have seen those kind of odds for Manchester United. And you notice also just in your 1x2 odds, your game by game odds throughout the season, that you'll have teams like Brighton, obviously, who were tremendous last season, playing teams like Chelsea, and you'll have instances where Chelsea either, I don't know, favourite, or like the odds are just way closer than, or at least favouring Chelsea than what they should be. And if their name wasn't Chelsea, if it was Crystal Palace versus Brighton, I think you would see more, I guess, efficiency with odds. And I've also looked at data too, and that blindly betting, I think it was, from memory, it was I could be wrong, but from memory, I think it was blindly betting I think it was like in the range of like 180 to 2.0 in odds, big six teams. So any of those big six teams in that kind of odds range, if you backed the other team or laid the big six teams, you would you would have been you would have had a good positive ROI over time. I mean, for example, I think like Chelsea versus Arsenal, it was like maybe 5 to 6 games left in 5 games left in the season. Arsenal played Chelsea they were at home, weren't they? Yeah, they were at home. And the odds opened up at like 1.7 or something for Arsenal. Like, just crazy stuff. Like, imagine if Chelsea by that point were basically playing like a bottom half of the table, a bottom 10 team at like a lower mid-table kind of team. That's how poorly they were going. And you're playing the second best team clearly in the league, and you're giving them 1.7. I mean, if Chelsea's name was Crystal Palace, like I said, like Arsenal's odds would have been like 1.4 or something crazy like that. So these are things you can look out for during the season. But I thought this outright winner of the Premier League was a great example, because there's just no way Arsenal and Manchester United can be the same odds 3 days ago going into this next season to win the Premier League. We've got a comment here from Lock, yes. Opinions of ex-players are largely worthless unless they have studied a new career in data, analytics, or management. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're definitely worthwhile listening to, some of them for sure, but you need to be able to create a filter between using their thoughts and opinions and then filtering that through to the betting markets. That's a completely different thing. Example number 2 of this was in the UFC, which is the main sport I kind of bet, or in MMA. Commentators in the UFC, and these are, your Daniel Cormier's, Michael Bisping, Paul Felder, all the commentators that are, working on the UFC, they are the opportunities I've found there, thanks to the commentators, have been great in the live betting market because 50, I think a little bit more than 50% of fights go to decision. So, throughout the fight, between rounds or during the fight, you can bet, live bet who's winning the fight, etc. With an eye on the scorecards and, who's won rounds, etc. And at times, the commentators will attempt to score the fight. Now, they are in no way in a position to provide accurate scoring on a fight. Their sole job is to commentate on what's happening on the fight. They are not point scoring. They are not counting how many takedowns, how many minutes someone's being controlled. Not saying this is like the main, scoring criteria, like damage. Then, I mean, they can obviously see who's doing more damage maybe most of the time. But what I'm trying to say here is that there's no way that in a very, very close round that they can decipher accurately who is winning the fight. Because their job is not to score the fight. There's 3 guys around the octagon who all they are thinking about right now is who is winning this fight, who is winning this round. And commentators will, attempt to score these rounds. And not a lot of the time, but some of the time when they're very close fights, it's almost impossible to do for them. And they're going to create inaccurate reads. They're going to score incorrectly. And people who will be betting the live markets will listen to the commentators and be like, oh, I'm not sure who won that round. That was pretty close. But Michael Bisping saying that this guy won. It's not, I would say his opinion is, it's important, but I would back my opinion or someone who's got lots of experience in scoring MMA, whose actually sole focus is scoring the fight, back their opinion over someone who's like just watching the fight, kind of, trying to pick out the X's and O's of the fight. So it's another example. You could probably find this example in other sports too, maybe. I'm not aware of any other sports like MMA where there's, you don't know who the winner is until, right at the end, like when someone scores something, you know what I mean? Like, basketball, rugby, all these sports, the score as you go along. But yeah, for example, like, maybe you can use it in other sports like soccer, rugby, and, maybe a commentator's saying, oh, I reckon X team is going to come back now, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I would say UFC is probably more heightened than ever that you can kind of, I guess, go against what they're saying. So yeah, there's definitely been examples where a commentator's like gone, for sure that fighter's won that fight. And, the odds will move in a way that represents that when it's, so just exploits opportunities. And yeah, my last example of this whole topic was popularity too. So going back to what I said about your big 6 teams being shorter odds than they generally should be. And also, I guess you could use it in examples in the UFC, like super, hyped fighters like the 18-year-old Paul Rosas Jr., or is it Raul Rosas? Oh God, Rosas Jr., whatever his first name was. 18 years old, very exciting, youngest fighter in UFC history. And giving these, Conor McGregor's, Ronda Rousey's, these kind of people, they come into a fight, with lower odds than they should because people are going to bet them because they are famous. People want to see them win because they like them. People, they think that they're very good at fighting because they're popular, which obviously they are, but it doesn't matter what your name is. It matters what your skill set is. So yeah, these are all just examples of times where you can look at whatever sport you bet. Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking completely off the top of my head here, but if you bet basketball, I'm assuming that generally a team like maybe the Chicago Bulls, I would assume they're a popular team compared to, I don't know, some random other team that I don't know, the Minnesota Timberwolves or something. I could be completely wrong. I don't know anything about the NBA, but maybe you can find things like that. Rugby league, there's probably some examples there, like the Gold Coast Titans are probably never going to be looked upon favorably because they've got very small fan base and they have never had any success. Compare that to maybe like a South Sydney Rabbitohs or something like that. You can find these examples probably everywhere. Got a question here from JR. Sorry, my system is very slow today. He says, what is a good method of understanding that despite having a narrow and wide probabilities for a team performance, the gamblers should tame their chances of making an erred, bold decision? I don't really understand your question. What is a good method of understanding that despite having... Can you just reword that for me, Jay? I don't exactly understand what you're asking. Maybe you're not even asking a question. Right. Maybe you're just making a statement here and I've read this completely wrong. I guess there's no question mark, so maybe it's not more of a statement. So JR, I think, is just saying here, a good method of understanding is that despite having a narrow and wide, probabilities for a team's performance, the gamblers should tame their chances of making erred. Is that a word, or do you mean to say error? Bold decision, erred. Maybe my English is not very good and that's a word. Erred. Is that a word? Well, I could be making a real fool of myself here. That is a word. It says definition of erred. Past tense of as in fumbled, to make a mistake, we badly erred. I guess I've heard, you can err on the side of caution, that kind of. Yeah. Oh, he's asking a question. Wow, this is thrilling streaming here. How can we make sure that gamblers make proper profitable bets during and throughout a season? I mean, it's quite a broad question, I guess. I mean, firstly, the gambler has to be good at what they do. This depends what kind of handicapping they're doing. Whether they're doing a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. But I guess for someone like, sorry, you've just, yeah. I think if you want consistency, we want to make sure that we're always placing profitable bets during and throughout a season of play. I think if you've started in your betting journey and you have noticed that you're a plus EV bettor, and now we're just looking at, like you've said here, how can we make sure that we are being consistent with our betting? I think a lot of it's down to your mental state and what kind of mental state you have when you approach your when you approach your betting, when you make your reads, when you whatever approach you do. So let's say you're a top-down kind of guy, then you want to make sure that when you're looking at the market, you're looking at the market through clear eyes, And if you're starting to handicap a fight like myself, I want to make sure that I'm in a good mental mindset. I don't come into the fight tape with any bias, and if I do, then I'm able to work with that and see what my bias could be heading into a fight, etc., etc. Maybe you're more so. Maybe the better thing to say is, how can we make sure that gamblers make profitable bets? The best guideline is the closing line. So if you're if you want to know whether you are making the right decisions game by game, you bet by bet, your best metric to go by is generally the closing line. Now, the closing line's not relevant in a lot of cases. If you're betting maybe like prop markets or a smaller league, then it's generally not that important because the league or team or sport isn't that efficient because it's just not bet by. It doesn't have much liquidity in the market. But if you're betting your NBAs, your NFLs, your EPLs, your big sporting leagues around the world, the ones that most people watch, then you can use the closing line on your over-unders, handicaps, money line, 1x2. You can look at the CLV on that, the closing line, and see if you've got value, and that's the best way you can judge yourself. But yeah, if you were talking more about how can we as gamblers stay consistent and make sure that, for 3 days of the week, we're placing some bloody good bets, and then for 1 day or 2 days of the week, we're not. If you want to stay consistent, then I think you just need to you need to hone your process. You need to understand why you're good at sports betting, and you need to understand what it takes for you to, like, what mental state do you need to be in to be able to achieve those goals every day. A good book you guys could read, I think I mentioned it last time, was Jared Tendler's book. And if this is kind of what more you're looking to achieve, I think if you want to take it, I think it depends a lot on what kind of sports betting you do. But I'll post it out here for everyone to check out if they want to. But I think if you are certainly if you're an in-play bettor, a live bettor, or you are a handicapper, I think it helps too. But if you're especially if you're in live markets and we're talking about you're making split-second decisions constantly, then I think this book would be really important for you to read. It's called The Mental Game of Trading by Jared Tendler. I just put the link to his website in the chat here. I've read this one myself, and I'm lucky in the sense that I don't do much live betting. Only once a week I'll do it on the UFC. So that's when I kind of need to make split-second decisions, or at least very quick decisions. But most of the time I can kind of really think my way through certain fights and how they might play out pre-game or pre-fight. So mental state's still very important, but I would say it's even more important for guys that are working in live markets and need to make quick decisions. But yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to go through today. I can wrap things up quickly here and get through have a look at some bets for the weekend. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, thanks for all the questions, JR, and the comments from the other fellas too. I can I can start to wrap things up and look at some of the bets for the weekend. But yeah, shoot through any last questions you've got for me. I can hang around for a bit longer. So yeah, for those who don't know, main kind of sports that I originate numbers on, or the main sport, is MMA or the UFC mostly, and also been working more so on NRL try scorers this year, which has been really good to me. So anytime try scorers for those guys in Australia, this is probably more relevant to you. I don't know if those markets are available overseas, but been having great success with that this year. So I think for the UFC, depends what kind of accounts you've got, but bet that everyone should be able to get on no matter what is. Let me have a look. See what the odds are. Sorry, guys. All right, here it is. Here. Yeah, Grant Dawson versus Damir Ismagulov. Sorry, I'll just get the odds up and change to decimal here on Odds Checker. Yeah, here you go. So if you guys can get anything on Grant Dawson, I think it's widely available now. You should be able to get evens or better. I think 2.1 here on Betfred's still. Yeah, I think he should be a pretty comfortable favourite there versus Damir Ismagulov this weekend. So that's one I can give you guys. That's a money line bet. So widely available at all your bookmakers. Should be able to get twos at a few places. But 2.1 maybe if you're lucky. Sharper books might have a little bit over 2 still, but pretty sure he moved into favourite for a bit there, or at least still kind of even kind of odds. But I think that should Grant Dawson should be a fave by the end of the weekend. By the time that fight happens, I can give you guys reasoning if you want. I mean, I just think Ismagulov announced his retirement about 6 months ago, which doesn't help at all. And now he's coming back to take this fight. I think he's like just generally wants to fight out his contract, which is never a good sign. Coming up against a guy who's climbing up the ranks, so should be improving fight to fight. Grant Dawson, and I think he's got good enough wrestling to be able to get takedowns here. And the thing is, the difference between he might not have as good wrestling as Arman did in his last Demir's last fight against Arman Sarukian, but I think Grant can just create scrambles, and his jiu-jitsu is much better than Arman's, in my opinion. So I think at any point that there is a scramble, or Grant's made his way to his back or something like that, even if they're still standing, I just think Grant can get lots of control here and keep this away from the standing, because he will not win the standing, and I think he can potentially even sub him. It's hard to make a call on that, but Grant's jiu-jitsu is better than Sarukian's in my estimation, and they're in the apex, which favours Dawson. Damir, from what I've seen, I don't think he's good at defending takedowns along the fence, but not so much in open play. And Grant, I think he'll be able to get single legs and stuff like that. So that's one fight. The other one is probably only valid if you've got a Kambi account. It's a market called. This is a fight between Carol Rosa and Yana Santos. So this market, you're basically just betting on who's going to get the finish. So the market, if you go into the fight, Santos versus Rosa, and go to fight lines and go to finish only. So it says it's void if the fight goes the distance, goes to a decision. So you're basically betting on if there is a finish, I think it's going to be Rosa. If it goes to a decision, it's void. If it doesn't, then and Santos finishes Rosa, then your bet would lose. But yeah, Carol Rosa should be a clear favourite here, in my opinion. Much more power on the feet, much more chance of getting a knockout on the feet, although, it doesn't really happen too often in MMA. I think the wrestling should be kind of interesting, could be pretty, disgusting kind of clinch fight along the fence. But Yana Santos on bottom she looks terrible to me for the most part. She got beat up by Holly Holm, which is a terrible look. I would say Rose is probably a better grappler. So, yeah, we will see how that plays out. I think it'll probably go to decision, but I think it's definitely worth a bet. And try scorers. An old favourite this year has been, I should know how to pronounce his name considering he plays for the Titans, but I just call him Lofi Khan Pereira to score a try this week. And I won't go into why, I think, because I think if I tell you why, I will be giving away what my edge is at the moment in this kind of market. I'd rather just tell you guys that it's a bet that you should take, and you can take it if you want to. But Alofiana, don't know if that's how you say it, Khan Pereira, anytime try scorer, can get this at Bet365, 1.95, good to go. I think it should be around 1.8, something like that. I think he's 55-ish % chance to score another try this weekend. Should be a good game, that. Sorry, JR. So that's all my bets, guys. If you've got any last minute questions, I will go through them. So there's 3 bets for you. Maybe I can track them in the future if people are interested in that. So what do we got? If I want to put some units on it so we can make this real professional, we can go, we'll make 1 unit is your max bet. So we'll go 1 unit Dawson at 2s. We'll go, we'll go 0 to 2 scale. How about that? We'll go, we'll go 2 units on Dawson. We'll go 2 units on Rosa DMB, and we'll go 1 point. Actually, let's go scale 0 to 5. That makes it easier for me. We'll go 3.5 units on Khan Pereira to score. We'll go 5 units on Rosa, and we'll go 4 units on Dawson. There you go. There's your final. So 5 units. If 5 units is your max bet, you can scale down from there. So we'll say that again: 4 units on Dawson, 5 units on Rosa, 3 on 3.5 on AKP to score a try. All right, got some comments here. JR says, I appreciate the response and the hot insight. Would be able to briefly explain or provide a valid analogy to handicapping. An analogy to handicapping. Well, I mean, I guess something like the stock market, I guess you could say, putting values on certain assets, stocks, these kinds of things. That's always a good comparison to sports betting or handicapping. I mean, you could say about a lot of investment kind of things. So, property, real estate, these kinds of things, putting, people aren't going to, it's the exact same thing in, let's just say property. If you value a house at $1 million and they're selling it for $990,000, then you'll take it probably. Or at least if you also think that in the future it's going to go surpass $1 million or something, then in value, then yeah. So it's the exact same kind of thing. I think Dawson should be like 1.8 kind of favorite this weekend. Maybe even bigger, and I can get him at 2s or 1.9. I'm happy to take that because I think it's value. So, yeah. JR also says, what site are you looking at for the MMA matchups and lineups? Oh, I mean, you can use whatever you want. I normally start my week off by looking at Tapology or the UFC website, and you can look at what what are the fights going to be this weekend. So you can go to UFC.com and go to events, and you'll see the lineup of all the fights. Or you can go to Tapology, and you can see all the events there that are coming up for all the promotions. So yeah, all right. I think that'll do us for today. Last second to get your questions in, but if you guys did enjoy it, unfortunately, to get much of an audience today, but hopefully, the first time people can get a bit more used to this, and we can get more of an audience along in the future, and maybe some of the guys from overseas can get up a bit earlier and tune in. And hopefully some of the Aussies, maybe they're out on the beers already, considering it's Friday. But or feel free to send through suggestions if it's maybe better to start a bit earlier or something like that on a Friday. I'm easy-ish. So, but yeah, and I'll try to get some guests on. There are whispers that the great Jonas Yelstead might come on next week and do a catch up with him, see what he's been up to the last couple of years. Been a while since he's been on the channel, so be good to have him back on. But yeah, if this is your first time on the channel, or you like the video, give it a like, please. Comment any questions. I'll try to get to them ASAP. My Twitter's down below, so you can send me a question there if you have any questions, and I can answer them when I get time. And subscribe to the channel if you can. Hope you guys enjoyed the first installment of live sharp sessions, and I'll catch you guys next week. Cheers.